Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yesterday in the lesson we told that there are three types of frictional forces: static frictional force, limiting frictional force, and dynamic frictional force. And today in the lesson I am going to give you definitions for static frictional force, limiting frictional force, and dynamic frictional force. So what is static frictional force? What is the definition given to us in the resource in the book? You are told the frictional forces that act when there is no relative motion, even though a force is applied on the body. Okay, there's no relative motion. The body is not moving. You are applying a force, but the body is not moving. Then you can decide, okay, what kind of frictional force is working here. Static frictional force is working here. So first it is static frictional force. Here the definition: the frictional forces. Okay, they're writing in plural. Let's write in plural, no problem. So static frictional forces mean the frictional forces that act when there is no relative motion, even though a force is applied on the body. So yesterday also I told you static frictional forces don't have a fixed value. Okay, they don't have a fixed value. Self they are self-determining according to applied force. They are self-determining according to applied force. So static forces, frictional forces don't have a fixed value. They are self-determining according to applied force. Okay, their value their value sorry their value will be equal to the applied force until the frictional force reaches the limiting frictional force. Okay, so these 3 points are very, very important. You have to understand these points. If you don't understand, just put me a message. I will further try to explain you. And second one, my children, first it is static frictional force. Okay, what it is? Next it is limiting frictional force. Okay. So limiting frictional force. In that case, your book says this definition: the frictional force that act on a body as it just begins to move. It is beginning to move. Okay, right. So this is the definition for you: the frictional force that acts on a body, just it begins to move. It's not moving is just moving, like shaking, like little going, like, okay, seeming a little small velocity is there. Okay, now say further another point: this force includes the small additional force that is necessary to give it a velocity. Okay, this force includes a small additional force that is necessary to give it a velocity. That means starting to move. Giving it a velocity means starting to move. It's not exactly moving, it is starting to move. Okay, so that is limiting frictional force. And keep in the mind, okay, limiting frictional force is the highest of all three types of frictional forces. Okay, right. So the third one, what is dynamic fictional force? Okay, in that case, it is the fictional force that acts on bodies when they are in relative motion. When they are in relative motion. And another important point to you is dynamic frictional force is slightly smaller than limiting frictional force. So work out this note, inshallah. Tomorrow I'll meet you with another idea. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.